Hello everyone. Freedom is never free. That truth lives quietly in the early mornings of America. In the soft glow of sunrise over small towns. In the silence before a flag is raised. In the homes where boots rest by the door and hearts wait by the phone. This story begins in one of those homes. A modest white house on the edge of a quiet street in Ohio, where the paint peeled a little at the corners and the front porch creaked under the weight of memories. An American flag hung proudly from a wooden pole near the door, not new, not perfect, but always clean, always raised. Hello everyone. Inside lived Margaret Walker, a mother. And this was the story of her son. If you love the U.S. Army and want the U.S. Army to continue fighting with the same bravery and passion, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Ethan Walker was 7 years old the first time he saluted a soldier. It happened at a 4th of July parade. The town band marched past, drums beating like a heartbeat, brass instruments shining under the summer sun. Children waved small flags. Parents clapped. Veterans stood a little straighter than usual. Then came the soldiers. Men and women in crisp uniforms, boots striking the pavement in perfect rhythm. Their faces were serious, not because they were angry, but because they carried something heavy. Something sacred. Ethan stood frozen. His small hand dropped from his paper flag. Without understanding why, he raised his right hand to his forehead, crooked, imperfect, but sincere. Margaret noticed. She knelt beside him and whispered, "Do you know why we stand for them?" Ethan shook his head. "Because," she said softly, "they stand for us." That moment stayed with him. Years passed, but the feeling never left. Ethan was 22 when he put on the uniform for the first time. Margaret cried, not because she was ashamed, but because she was proud and afraid at the same time. Pride filled her chest like fire. Fear followed quietly behind it. At the recruitment office, Ethan hugged her tightly. "I'll be fine, Mom." She touched his face, memorizing it. "Just promise me one thing." "Anything." "Come back the same man." Ethan smiled gently. "I'll try." Neither of them realized that war doesn't always allow promises to survive. The desert was nothing like home. The sun burned without mercy. The wind carried dust instead of rain. Nights were cold, silent, and full of thoughts no soldier ever wanted. Ethan served with the U.S. Army Infantry, deployed to a region most Americans would never see but would sleep peacefully because of. He learned quickly. He learned how to run when fear told him to freeze. How to trust men he had known for weeks more than people he'd known for years. How to laugh during danger and cry only when alone. He also learned the cost. Friends didn't always return from patrols. Names were spoken softly. Helmets were placed upside down with rifles and boots beneath them. Each loss carved something from his heart. Still, he served. Because that's what soldiers do. Whenever possible, Ethan called home. Sometimes it was just minutes. Sometimes just silence and breathing on the line. Margaret never asked about the fighting. She never asked about the dead. She asked, "Did you eat? Are you warm? Do you know I love you?" And Ethan always answered, "Yes, Mom. I know." But as months passed, his voice changed. Not weaker. Heavier. The mission briefing was short. Too short. Everyone understood what that meant. High risk. Unknown enemy movement. No guarantees. That night, Ethan sat alone in the dim glow of his phone. Signal was weak. Battery low. Still, he pressed the call button. The screen flickered. Then, his mother's face appeared. "Took you long enough," she joked. He smiled, but his eyes told a different story. "Mom, listen to me." Her smile faded. I need to say something. She leaned closer to the screen. If I don't come back. His voice cracked. Please forgive me. Margaret felt her heart stop. Forgive you for what? For choosing this. For leaving you. For not being there. Tears streamed down her face. Oh, my son, she whispered. There is nothing to forgive. The connection broke. The screen went dark. That was the last video call. Final message, end lines, example. Hello everyone. America is not just land. America is the people who protect it. And the U.S. Army is not just an institution. It is the heartbeat of sacrifice, honor, and love. If you love this mother, then like the video and subscribe to the channel. Dawn broke slowly over the desert. Not gently. Not peacefully. It rose like a warning. Ethan tightened the strap of his helmet as the sky shifted from black to gray. The air was cold, carrying the scent of dust, fuel, and something else, something soldiers learned to recognize without ever naming it. Fear. No one spoke much. They didn't need to. Each man checked his weapon. Each man checked the other. In war, brotherhood wasn't created by words, it was forged by trust. Ethan slipped his phone into the inner pocket of his vest. For a moment, he thought of calling again. But some calls are final, even when no one says goodbye. The convoy moved out. Engines growled low, like restrained beasts, rolling toward territory marked in red on the map, areas where the enemy hid among ruins, shadows, and silence. Ethan sat in the back of the vehicle, gripping his rifle. He thought of his mother's face on the screen. There is nothing to forgive. Those words wrapped around him like armor. The first explosion came without warning. A deafening blast tore through the air, throwing the lead vehicle sideways. Sand erupted like a wave. The shock wave slammed into Ethan's chest, knocking the breath from his lungs. Contact left. Gunfire followed instantly. Chaos replaced silence. Training took over. Ethan moved without thinking, returning fire, shouting commands, pulling a wounded soldier to cover. The world narrowed to fragments, dust, noise, heat, pain. He saw Private Collins fall. Saw Sergeant Ramirez drag him back. Saw blood soaking into the sand, dark, unforgiving. Time slowed in that way only combat could force upon a man. Every second felt stolen. Every breath felt borrowed. They were pinned down. Enemy fire came from a collapsed building ahead. The squad couldn't move forward. They couldn't retreat. Someone had to flank the position. Everyone knew what that meant. Ethan didn't wait for the order. "I'll go," he said. Ramirez grabbed his arm. "Walker. If we don't move now, we lose more." A pause. Then a nod. Ethan ran. Bullets cracked past him, slicing the air. His legs burned. His lungs screamed. He reached the side of the building and pressed himself against the wall, heart pounding like it might tear free. Inside, voices. Enemy fighters. He pulled a grenade. In that instant, just one heartbeat, he thought of home. Of the porch. Of the flag. Of a mother waiting by a silent phone. He whispered, "I love you, Mom." Then he moved. The explosion ended the firefight. When the dust settled, the enemy position was gone. The squad moved forward. They called his name. Walker. No answer. They found him beneath broken stone and smoke. Still. Quiet. Ethan Walker did not come back. Back in Ohio, Margaret was folding laundry. It was late afternoon. The house was too quiet. Then came the knock. 3 sharp knocks. Her hands froze. She knew before she opened the door. Two soldiers stood on her porch. Dress uniforms. Folded flag. Faces carved with respect and sorrow. Margaret didn't scream. She didn't fall. She simply placed her hand over her mouth as the world shattered quietly inside her chest. "We regret to inform you." She didn't hear the rest. Only silence. The church overflowed. Neighbors. Veterans. Soldiers she'd never met. The casket rested at the front, draped in the American flag. Margaret sat in the front row. Straight-backed. Still. When the honor guard folded the flag, each movement precise, sacred, final, time seemed to stop. The officer knelt before her and said, "On behalf of a grateful nation." She took the flag, held it to her chest, and whispered, "My son came home." Weeks later, Margaret finally turned on Ethan's phone. There it was. The last video call. His face. His voice. "If I don't come back, please forgive me." Tears streamed down her face. She answered the screen softly, there was never anything to forgive. Ethan's name was engraved in stone. But his story lived on. In schools where children stood a little straighter during the anthem. In soldiers who carried his memory into the next mission. In a mother who raised the flag every morning, just like always. America remembers its fallen not with words alone, but with freedom still standing. America is more than land and borders. America is sacrifice. It is mothers who let go. Sons and daughters who step forward. Soldiers who give everything, so others may live quietly, safely, freely. And the U.S. Army is the promise that when darkness rises, someone will stand in its path. Ethan Walker kept that promise. And America keeps his memory. Because the Army loves America. And America never forgets those who loved her enough to give their lives. After the funeral, the house felt different. Not empty. Listening. Margaret noticed it most at night. The soft hum of the refrigerator. The ticking clock in the hallway. The wind brushing against the flag outside. Sounds that had always been there, but now seemed louder, as if the walls themselves were waiting for Ethan to walk through the door. She didn't change his room. His boots still rested by the bed. His jacket still hung behind the door. Dust settled slowly, respectfully, like it understood it didn't belong there. Every morning, Margaret made 2 cups of coffee. Every morning, she poured one down the sink. Grief didn't arrive all at once. It came in waves, unpredictable, unforgiving. Some days she stood strong. Other days, she broke while folding a shirt that still smelled like him. But the flag outside never came down. Not once. The first letter arrived 2 weeks later. Then another. And another. They came from places Margaret had never visited: Texas, California, New York, small towns she'd never heard of. Some were handwritten. Some were typed. All carried the same weight. "I served with your son. He saved my life. Because of him, I came home." One letter came from Sergeant Ramirez. Margaret read it slowly. He wrote about Ethan's calm under fire. About his laugh during long nights. About the way he volunteered without hesitation when everything was on the line. He didn't hesitate, ma'am. Not for a second. He chose us. We are alive because of him. Margaret pressed the letter to her chest. For the first time since the knock on the door, she allowed herself to cry, not from pain, but from pride. Months later, Margaret stood on a stage. She hadn't planned to. The principal had asked gently, "Would you like to say a few words?" She wanted to say no. But something inside her said yes. She looked out at the students, young faces, restless, unaware of how fragile freedom truly was. She held up Ethan's photo. "This is my son," she said. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. He wasn't born a hero. He was just a boy who believed in something bigger than himself. The room was silent. She continued. He believed that loving your country meant protecting people you'd never meet, and trusting that your sacrifice mattered. Somewhere in the crowd, a young boy sat up straighter. A seed was planted. Far away, in another desert, another group of soldiers prepared for deployment. One of them wore Ethan's name on a patch inside his vest. Not official. Personal. "Why do you keep that?" someone asked. The soldier replied, "Because someone once did the same for me." That is how soldiers live on. Not just in memory, but in action. Chapter 18, The Anniversary. 1 year later, Margaret visited the cemetery alone. She knelt beside the stone. Ran her fingers over his name. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. The wind moved gently through the trees. The flag nearby snapped softly, alive against the sky. Margaret smiled. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "And I kept mine." She stood, straightened her coat, and walked away, not leaving him behind, but carrying him forward. Most Americans will never hear the sound of gunfire. They will never feel the weight of a helmet or the fear of not seeing tomorrow. They will wake up, go to work, kiss their children goodnight, because someone else stood in harm's way. That is the silent agreement. That is the bond. The U.S. Army does not ask for applause. It asks for remembrance. It asks that freedom not be taken lightly. And when a soldier falls, America does not move on. It remembers. Chapter 20, The Call That Never Ends. That final video call never left Margaret's phone. She didn't replay it often. But she knew it was there. A reminder of love. Of courage. Of a son who faced the unknown and chose honor. "If I don't come back, please forgive me." America heard that call too. And answered it, with gratitude. America is not perfect. But she is protected. Protected by sons and daughters who raise their right hand and promise to give everything, even their lives, so others may live free. The Army is built on love. Love for country. Love for each other. Love strong enough to endure sacrifice. And America's love for her soldiers is written not just in monuments and medals, but in every sunrise that rises in peace. Ethan Walker came home in memory. In honor. In legacy. And his story lives on.